The twin brother of a woman who died after refusing chemotherapy says he doesn't want others to go through what he went through, and he's calling for stricter regulation around medical advice and conspiracy theories on social media.
An inquest found that Paloma Sherimani was adversely influenced by her own mother into rejecting treatment and died after following that advice. Gabriel joins us now alongside the BBC's social media investigations correspondent Mariana Spring, who has a podcast, Mariana in Conspiracy Land. And of course, conspiracy is for you sort of at the heart of what happened to your twin sister. I mean, absolutely devastating. We're just a year on from losing Paloma. And you feel that this all could have been avoided.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were so many points that there should have been an intervention by the state, and there was so many warning signs. You know, be it that my sister's, allegations of abuse that from my mum towards her, or just even in the hospital when it was apparent that my sister was being coerced away from doing a treatment that would have saved her life. And it's one of the reasons I opened the High Court case to get my sister's treatment evaluated, but. When you have cancer, time is of the essence. And unfortunately, time got ahead of us before the High Court case could conclude. So, yeah, I mean, it's very disappointing because, I'm here a year later and my sister shouldn't be dead. This was a treatable cancer. And not only was it a treatable cancer, but there were so many points where something should have been done and someone should have said, this woman's going to kill her.
Just devastating. Just tell us about, because you were estranged from your mother. Tell us about growing up. What were the conspiracies that were talked about and discussed at home?
So initially it was my dad that was initially into conspiracy theories. So it was a lot of 9/11 was an inside job, or 7/7 was an inside job. And as with conspiracy theories, the mind kind of requires a consistency. So there's just a general distrust or mistrust towards any kind of authority figures or authorities in general. So when my mum got cancer in 2012, she had surgery, so conventional surgery to cure her cancer. And she then followed it with this alternative therapy. So then the conspiracy theories took a distinctively anti-medicine form. So it became that we were no longer allowed to, overnight, we were no longer allowed to drink tap water, drink fruit juices, everything had to be organic, and we were having supplements, sometimes dangerous, put in our drinks or forced on us, and our mum would repeatedly, give us apricot kernels, for example, which are known to the public for their quite high cyanide content. And, supplements that, I worry may have had a number of adverse health effects on me and my siblings.
It was obviously kind of terribly bad news when Gabriel was diagnosed with the cancer.
Paloma.
Paloma, sorry, was diagnosed with the cancer. But what then happens? Because how do you see that she's taking the wrong course in terms of treatment? And what options did you feel were available to you to try and get this sorted out? I know you ended up going to the High Court to social workers, but what were the choices that you thought you had to do something about it?
So I first noticed it was wrong was when I'd gone to see my sister in hospital, she was actively considering her options, and I was confident would have picked chemotherapy. It had a very high survival rate. However, it was when my mum became part of the picture, and they were estranged at that point, so my sister had only told my mum out of a courtesy that she had cancer. Was then I saw the machinations that my mum was making and this pressure and coercion for my sister to, reject chemotherapy. So when I saw that happening, obviously, my mum's a very controlling woman, so she deliberately cut me off from my sister and made it so that I couldn't contact her. So my first recourse was social services, who, I'm not on here to slander social services, but, I felt that wasn't the most effective route for whatever reason. So following that, I felt that I was left only with the option to take it to the High Court to get my sister's treatment evaluated, and for it to be evaluated whether she was making her own decision, because it was and it still is my strongly held opinion that my sister was being coerced away from doing a treatment that would have saved her by a mother who essentially wanted to use her daughter you know, as a test subject. And if it went well, then my mum's got her very own Belle Gibson or Jess Ainscough. And if it goes badly, well, you know, who cares, because she just dies. And, you know, my mum never really loved her that much anyway, if I'm brutally honest.
Wow. I mean, these are devastating things to say about your own mother. How did you separate yourself? You grew up in a household where these things were all discussed, but you were able to separate yourself away. How did you manage to do that?
I mean, we were decently intelligent children, decently hard-working children. So we got ourselves into good schools, and you know, I think part of it, you know, we didn't like our own family life. So you try and keep it away from it as much as you can, and you try and get yourself into good universities because it's kind of your ticket out. And I think that was, you know, the exposure to the outside world and the exposure to. I often say that conspiracy theories, especially in a family, thrive on the oxygen of isolation. So that's why typically the parents will isolate their kids from any outside influence, because then there's nothing, there's no onus to question your beliefs or, you know, challenge or give pushback. And I think it was this interaction with the outside world, this interaction with education and just others was what saved us, I think.
Mariana, the key issue here seems to be the rejection of chemotherapy. And the coroner concluded that Paloma and Gabriel's parents influenced Paloma to reject chemotherapy in favour of alternative treatments, which ultimately led to her death. Didn't come to a conclusion of unlawful killing, but clearly this influence led her to reject a treatment which had an 80% chance of success, led to her death. How much rejection of something like chemotherapy is there online? And these alternative treatments, as we've seen in, you know, the Netflix show Apple Cider Vinegar, which you refer to, Belle Gibson. How dangerous and pervasive is that?
So when I started investigating what had happened to Paloma when Gabriel first got in touch with me, I also looked at how this fitted into this wider landscape of medical misinformation online and also in politics in the real world. And I think particularly since the pandemic, I've spoken to a number of doctors, experts who all say that that was the moment that seems to have turbocharged the spread of these beliefs. And when we're talking about medical misinformation, we're talking about ideas that go way beyond legitimate concerns or questions that people might have, stuff that is just totally contradicts the science and medical advice. A lot of the kinds of content that you see online is really scary. It plays into your fears. And when we think about someone like Paloma, she was incredibly clever, brilliant young woman, but found herself, as the coroner acknowledged, in a vulnerable position, and that left her open to that. And I think it's really important that we perhaps sort of don't have misconceptions about who believes this stuff, because we could all be impacted by it.
Gabriel, what needs to change? What could be done by the law or the government or the authorities to mean that Paloma's case wouldn't be repeated?
Also, it's my personal opinion, and so I want a judicial review of the coroner's conclusion, because it's my personal opinion that in its current form, I think if anything, it's actually set more of a dangerous precedent. Because in the coroner's conclusion, she accepted that my mum had obviously influenced my sister. She accepted that my mum had, you know, helped to falsify my sister's court statements. You know, she accepted that my mum had delayed calling an ambulance, an avoidable delay, which may or may not have contributed to my sister's death. So she outlined all these things which you and me, you know, and for the viewer sitting at home can look at and say, well, there's obviously something wrong here. She's obviously played, you know, quite a part in her daughter's death. But then when the coroner reaches this unlawful killing conclusion, it almost looks like...
Well, not an unlawful...
Not an unlawful killing conclusion, rather. To me, it felt like this ruling created a how to kill your daughter and get away with it handbook 101. Because it's defined what you can do. You know, you can falsify court statements, etc. All these things that you can do, and you can still get away with it. So for me, it's in the public interest that I challenge this conclusion. Right. Because, you know, it's not right that my mum should be able to do all this stuff and there's no legal recourse, which there currently isn't. And I think further than that, I also think the law needs to be changed. Because it shouldn't... we shouldn't have to use nuance and have to explain why this is obviously wrong. The law should be far clearer on, obviously this is wrong. Obviously you shouldn't be able to influence a family member adversely and coerce them into doing a treatment which they don't want to do, which ends up killing them. You are speaking out today, and I hope for you will really make a difference. Yeah, so I'm in contact with MPs currently about, you know, speaking about whether there's any legislative change to stop happening what happened to my sister. Because, you know, I said when this all broke a few months ago that you know, the best way for me to remember my sister is to stop this from ever happening to anyone again. And I feel in its current form, I won't be able to do that.
Thank you both so much.
We reached out to Kate and Dr. Paloma Sherimani, and neither gave us a response. But during the inquest, Kate did tell the coroner's court the decision to reject chemotherapy was entirely Paloma's own. She's also previously promoted a range of unproven theories holding the NHS and medics responsible for Paloma's death.
If you're affected by that issue or any of the issues we've been discussing, you can find advice and support at itv.com/helplines. Thank you very much indeed, Gabriel and Mariana, from Mariana in Conspiracy Land, the podcast. Thank you.